But as Hashem is Baruch, we begin Perek Revi, the fourth chapter in the Rambam's Hilchos Talmud Torah, the rules of learning Torah, in the Sefer Mad, the book of knowledge, which in this Perek we continue and finish off the halachas of learning Torah, which in this Perek specifically it's regarding teaching to students. As Rambam gives halacha alf regarding the students and the teacher. So imalam the Torah, we don't teach Torah ela l'tamid hagun, to an appropriate student. No b'maisav is appropriate in his actions, or the tamar to an innocent student. But if he's going in a not good path, first you bring him back to the good way, and you conduct him in the upright path, and you inspect him. And then you bring him into the study hall, and you teach him Torah. The sages said, whoever teaches to a student that's not appropriate, it's as if he's thrown a stone to Marculus, which is mercury, which is the name of a Avodah Zarah, which they would serve it by throwing stones in front of it. Shlomo says a pasuk in Mishlei, Kitzroid Evan b'margema, like the pebble of a stone in a sling. Keinoisen l'ksil kabed, so too someone gives a fool honor, which ve'en kabed el Torah, and really when you're saying giving honor it means learning, teaching him Torah. Shlomo, because like it says a pasuk in Mishlei, Kavod chacham yinchalu. Honor, it's the sages that inherit. So you're giving him a stone, and you think you're giving him something good, and he's using it as a slingshot. He's like, actually, it's like a service of idolatry, because it's actually a destructive thing to teach an unripe student. So to a teacher, if the teacher doesn't go in the appropriate path, although he's a great sage of and all the people need him, and you don't learn from him until he comes back to the good way. Shlomo says in the pasuk in Malachi, it says, "Kisiftzei koyin yishmeru das," because the lips of the koyin, of the priest, will safeguard the intelligence. V'teiri yivakshim epihu, and the Torah you should request from his mouth. Ki malach Hashem tzavakesu, because he's an agent of Hashem, the Lord of hosts. Which the sages say, if the teacher is like a malach of Hashem tzavakes, then Torah yivakshim epihu, then you'll ask Torah from his mouth. If not, then even if he's a great sage, but if he's not like a malach, he doesn't act in the same agency of God, then don't ask from Torah from his mouth. Now, how does one teach Torah? So the teacher sits in the front, but and the students surround him in front like a crown, so that all of them could see the teacher and they could hear his words. You shouldn't have the teacher sitting on a chair, but and the students on the ground. Rather, either they're all sitting on the ground, or they're all sitting on chairs. Now, over the originally, the teacher would be sitting and the students would be standing. Now, before the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, they would all teach the students, and they would be sitting. Halacha Gimel. Now, if the teacher was teaching straight from his mouth to the students, so malamed, he could teach that way. If he was teaching based on with a spokesman, with a translator, interpreter, someone who would amplify it. So the way it's like this. So this interpreter, this spokesman, would stand between the Rabbi and the students. The Rabbi says to the Metargim, and the Metargim, then he amplifies it, he says it out to all the students. When the students ask a question to the Metargim, because he's in the middle, then he asks the teacher, and the teacher responds to the Metargim, and then the Metargim answers to the questioner. Now, the teacher should not elevate his voice more than the voice of Metargim, and neither should the spokesperson elevate his voice when he's asking the teacher, more than the voice of the teacher himself. Obviously, when he's speaking to the people, he says it louder. In the Metargim Rashai, now the spokesperson is not allowed to not to diminish, not to add on, not to change anything from what the Rebbe is saying. Unless if the Meturgaman is actually the teacher of this age or his father. Now, if the Rebbe says to the Meturgaman, to the spokesperson, Kach Amali Rabbi, this is how my teacher has said, or Kach Amali Abamori, this is what my my teacher has said, my master. When the Meturgaman says over those words to the people, he says in the name of the sage, and he mentions the name of the father of the teacher or the Rebbe of the teacher. And he says, he says, this is what that rabbi said, Even though the teacher didn't say the name of the sage, because he's not allowed to call his Rebbe or his father in the name, but when the Meturgim is saying he'll say the name of Reb Moshe, he'll say the name of the father. Halacha Daled regarding tolerance and regarding fear. So Harav Shalimid. So the teacher that taught, and the students do not understand. He shouldn't get angry at them, shouldn't get frustrated. Rather, you should repeat over and teach it again, even many times, until they understand the depth of the halacha. So the student shouldn't say, oh, Hivanti, I understood. He didn't understand. Rather, you should go back and ask even many times. Now, if his Rebbe gets angry at him and gets frustrated, you should tell him, Rebbe, my teacher, it's terrible, and I need to learn, but I have a very small comprehension. Halacha hey. Now, the student should not be embarrassed of his friends. That they already learned it, they got on the first time or the second time, and he could only learn, they only understand it after many times. Because if he gets embarrassed from this thing, it's going to come out that he's entering and leaving the Beis HaMedrash, but he's not learning anything. Therefore, the earlier sages said, the one who gets embarrassed will not learn, but the one who gets frustrated won't be able to teach. Now, but remember, when do we say this? It's only if the students didn't understand what's being taught, either because of the depth of the shir, or because their intelligence is much more narrow. But if it's recognizable to the teacher that they're negligent in the words of Torah, and they're being feeble with it, and that's why they didn't understand, then he has to get upset at them. And to shame them with words, to sharpen them. It's regarding this point that the sage has said, instill fear in the students. Therefore, therefore it's not appropriate for the teacher, because he has to be able to be a little bit intimidating for them. It's not appropriate for the Rav to be to conduct himself lightheaded in front of the students, and not to laugh in front of them, not to eat and drink with them. He must tell them so that his fear should be on them, and that they should learn from him quickly. Regarding asking the Rebbe questions. You don't ask the teacher right when he comes into the study hall until his mind becomes settled. And neither did the student ask Kishi comes right when he enters until he gets settled and he's in the right frame of mind. Neither do two people ask at the same time. You don't ask the teacher from some other topic, only from that topic that they're engaged in right now, so that the teacher should not become embarrassed, like he might not be able to think about what's somewhere else a sugya. Now, the teacher has the permission to mislead the students with his questions regarding the actions that he does in front of them, to sharpen them, and that he should know if they recall what he taught them, or they don't, because he's doing something that should say, hey, Rebbe, didn't you say this? I wanted to make sure that you got it. You don't have to say that he's allowed to ask them from a topic not what they're learning. Again, so that he can spur them on to greater heights in learning. Now, you don't ask a question standing, and neither do you respond standing. Not from a high place, not from a distance, not from behind the elders, where the elders would be sitting close in the first row in front of the Rav, and therefore the one who's asking from behind them has to come out in front so that they see them at the time of the discussion. And you don't ask the teacher only in the topic that they're in the middle of reading right then. You only ask from a state of fear, and you don't ask on the topic more than 3 halachas. Now let's say 2 people are asking a question. One is asking on the point, and one's asking not on the point. So obviously you address first the one that's asking on this topic. Someone's asking something in practice, someone's asking something that's not practical. You first address the one that has a real actionable question. Let's say halacha. Someone's asking halacha that was said from Moshe from Sinai. Umidrash. The other ones has a question regarding the midrashim, the mechilta, the sefrot, the sefri. They were the midrashi halacha that are learned out from the psukim in the Torah. The skakim halacha. You first address the one that has a question of halacha Moshe from Sinai. Midrash Ragada. Someone has the interpretation of the psukim that have halachic implications. The other one is Agade, which is the homiletic teachings based on the Chumash. This Kakam Midrash, you first address the one that has a halachic Midrash question. Agada v'Kal, someone has a question on the God, someone has a question on the Kal V'Chomer. This Kakam the Kal V'Chomer, you first address the Kal V'Chomer, which is a teaching that based on a severe area and that which is lighter to address a stringency that you can get. Kal V'Chomer Gzera Shava, let someone has, which is Gzera Shava has the same word in two different places, and you compare the two contexts, and one has a Kal V'Chomer question. This Kakam Kal V'Chomer, you address the question relating to the Kal V'Chomer. Hayashol Mishnayim, let's say these two questioners, Echad Chacham v'Echad Talmud. One is the sage and one is the student. So in the Skakam L'Chacham, when you first address the sage. Talmud Ha'Ma'aretz, one is the student, one is the ignorant person. In Skakam L'Talmud, you first address the question of the student. Let's say Shneim Chacham, let's say both were sages, or Shneim Tamidim, they're both students, or Shneim Ha'Ma'aretz, they're both ignoramuses, or Shalosh Shneim B'Shnei Halachos, they're both asking halachic questions, or B'Shtei Tshuvos, so they both have a response as a question to what the Rabbi had said, or B'Shtei Shalos, or they both have questions, or Shnei Maisim, they both have two practical questions. So then Harishus Be'elam Metargim Ata, so that's the option of the Metargim, the spokesperson at this point, to choose whichever one he wants to. Halacha test regarding the sanctity of the Beis HaMedrash, of the study hall. Ein Yishein Be'Beis HaMedrash, one does not sleep in the study hall. V'chol Mesnam Be'Beis HaMedrash, whoever dozes off in the study hall, Chachmasa in Nasas Karam Karam, his wisdom becomes like torn up pieces. This is what Shlomo said in his wisdom, Pasuk Mishlei, Ukarayim Talbish Numa. It torn up pieces is a clothing of the one who slumbers. They mesichim bebeis hamedrash, and one doesn't just talk and chatter in the beis hamedrash. Only in discussions of the words of Torah. Even someone who sneezes, you don't tell refuah, oh, this should be a blessing of healing. Bebeis hamedrash in the study hall, and you don't have to say other things one does not say in the beis hamedrash. And the sanctity of the study hall is more severe even than the sanctity that one has in the shuls, in the gatherings of the synagogues.